Hello from the East Coast of Canada. Anita and Tina here again to share some social media tips and strategies for small businesses who are paddling against the tides, trying to get to shore in a sea of platforms. It's the Social Coast. Welcome, swimmers. So hello, everybody tuning in. Tina and I are here again with another great topic that we're sure is going to probably barely fit into an hour. So we're glad that you're here. We've got lots to talk about. Our topic today is content curation, and we're focusing on content curation for small businesses. It's very different if you're a small local business with, just one person or a few employees versus, if you're Coca-Cola or somebody like that. I say Coca-Cola as I'm sitting here drinking a Pepsi, which is kind of funny.
Just because it's ironic.
Just because it's ironic. To say Coca-Cola as a big brand is my default for some reason, but yet I'm drinking Pepsi. Anyway.
So how this topic came about was when Anita and I were talking earlier in the week. I mentioned that I had a group of 20 entrepreneurs that I met with a few weeks ago, and I'm meeting them again next week. And one of the big things that they're wondering about is how to save some time on social media by pre-planning content. And then that sends them into a bit of a panic because they're thinking, wow, I don't have enough time to pre-plan all of the content that I might need to fill up my social media calendar. And then we got talking about content curation and how you can add other quality content into the mix. So that's sort of where we started from. And then we talked about just starting off by defining what is content curation. So I was going to ask you to start us off with that, Anita.
Sure. I will. I just wanted to say to you, because you won't know this, but Terry Kemp is actually Nancy if you're talking to her.
I almost welcomed Terry.
Yeah, so Nancy, it tells us that you're Terry, but since I know it's you, hello, Nancy, and welcome. And she's local. They are a local company here in Halifax. Right. Okay, so what I did was I wanted to find a way to start this off with a definition. So I went to, of course, Wikipedia for the definition of content curation, but I actually found another one that it's a little bit more modern, if you will. More modern than Wikipedia. I can't believe I said that. Content curation, sorry, I scrolled, is the process of gathering information relevant to a topic or area of interest. Services or people that implement content curation are called curators. So if you think about the term curator, that term has been around for, I don't know, hundreds of years probably, because museums and galleries, they would have curators for their collections. And so if you think about it that way, it makes a lot of sense because you are the museum or the gallery curator for your business. You're the one that's collecting this information to disseminate, just the same as the curator at a museum would collect art pieces for a particular artist or topic or theme and put those in the museum or the gallery. But then there was, let me see if I can pull it right up.
One thing I really love, I was just to interject briefly on that one, Anita. One thing I love about that analogy between a museum curator and a social media curator is that in both cases, you're really interested in quality, right? So when you're curating for your social media content and what you would like to share, you're going to be going through large amounts of content, and you're going to be looking in sort of a very specific way for certain types of content. But then you need to take the time to actually find the best content to share. So that's one of the things I love about thinking of it as a museum curator. And now you've got a second definition there for us?
Well, I thought I did, but now I can't find that other definition that I had purposely left on my screen so I could find it. Apparently it's not here now, but it was something just a little bit different. But I think everybody kind of understands what we're saying.
Exactly.
You're collecting the information that you want to put out on your profile. So you're collecting things that are relevant to your audience, that will augment your own knowledge and your own offerings so that you don't have to be writing and creating every piece of content that you're putting out there. Because quite honestly, nobody has that much time to do all of that themselves. So
Exactly.
curation is one of the big benefits, is filling up your social profiles with relevant content in a way that takes less time to produce it.
Exactly. And then one of the big fears that immediately came up for this group of people after I talked briefly about what it is was, well, should I really share other people's content? Doesn't that detract from my own content? Won't that compete with the time and attention that I need to have focused on my own content? And what would you say about that question or that worry, Anita?
I'm sorry, I was responding to Nancy, so I didn't hear your question.
So quick recap, and one of the big concerns was, is that going to pull attention away from my own content if I'm sharing other people's content? And I would say no, it doesn't, but it also depends on how you go about it, which we're going to talk about in this hour. But what are your thoughts on that when someone comes to you with that concern?
I don't know that anybody's actually ever voiced that concern to me about sharing content. They're usually just so happy to hear that it's okay to share other people's content, that they don't have to write it or photograph it or graphic design everything themselves, that I'm not sure that they've thought about the possibility of that. But the other thing is, if you're providing good content and unique content that people just can't get everywhere, then it's not going to overshadow your content, because yours is unique. It's your perspective. It's your offering. And the people who are doing business with you or want to do business with you, they want to hear it from your perspective. So I think I've told this story before on Blab, but a couple of years ago, I had somebody write to me out of the blue who'd been following me on social media for a while. And he said, I came to your website. I was looking for an ebook on Facebook or Twitter or something, just an ebook of yours that I could download and read. And he said, you don't have anything. And I wrote back to him. My instinct was to write back to him and say, well, there's lots of people out there that have them. Here's 2 or 3 good ones you can get. And he's like, yeah, that's all well and good, but I wanted it from your perspective. I follow you. You're the local person. I want to hear it in your voice, and so do other people. And that was a big light bulb moment for me, and it's what led me to have the ebook that I did have, which was Facebook page management for twerps. I just simply couldn't keep up with the changes to keep that one updated. But
there are a lot.
The changes are crazy over at Facebook these days. So I think it's really important that people realize their fans want to hear from them. It's all well and good for us to share information from Social Media Examiner and Mari Smith and Kim Garst and whoever, but they're not us, and they don't see things from the same perspective that we see them here in Halifax. And they're obviously not going to relate it directly to things happening in Halifax, which makes things easier to learn for people. So I think it's really important that everybody realizes that it's okay to share stuff that's relevant to your audience, and you need to provide your own context around all of that as well.
Yeah. That is a great point, and we probably want to make a few more points about the value of curation beyond that too. But let's get to Nancy's question first, because it's such a great question, and it's something that we mentioned the other night, Anita, that's probably shifting a little bit. But the question of the ratio between what should be your own content and what part of what you share should be content from other sources. So it has always been that 75 or 80% of what you share should come from other sources. And that's backed up by a lot of studies and data. And one of the reasons that you want to do that is, for some strange reason, people will naturally engage more with third-party content that you share. And I personally think it's because there's no sales push in there. There's no sales intent. There's no stickiness about the message. This is just information for you that I think you'll find valuable. I have curated it. It is one of the best articles I could find on this topic. So people will click on it and take a look at it on that basis if they know that you're providing that type of content on a regular basis. That used to be the rule. And for me, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, that is absolutely still the rule on a platform like Twitter, on a platform like LinkedIn. You may do something different with your company pages than what you share in your personal profile on LinkedIn for sure. But it seems to be kind of changing on Facebook, and just recently, like just in the past, month?
Last week they announced the big change. Yeah.
So now there's been a big change to the algorithm, and we're probably on a wait and see basis right now to see how much of our own content will get reach based on using audience optimization tool. Hopefully, if you listened in last week, you're starting to use that tool. I have started to use it, and it's actually, I'm seeing results from it. It's been pretty interesting, and we might go back and talk about it.
I forgot about it. It's all about routines, right? You have to create new routines every time these changes come in. And so if you are not used to adding that to your status update every time you do it, you got to create a new routine to remind yourself to do that. So I did it that one time, then totally forgot about it again.
So for Nancy, I would say out of 4 posts, maybe 3 of them could be shared from other quality sources. Or if you want to go a little bit higher ratio because you have less of your own content, you could do 4 out of 5 for now. And we're going to keep our eye on how that evolves with the changes at Facebook. Anita, you just brought up a great point, a kind of a segue to creating a new routine. So for DIY social media business owners, you're doing your own social media for your business. If you're thinking about adding curation in, you need to create a new habit around it. And we did come across, I'm going to look for the link in a second and I'll pop it in. But we came across one article where there is a section in it that addresses that exact topic in a pretty good way. The writer in that article uses Feedly. Anita and I will talk about some of the tools we use. Feedly is just a curation platform where you can curate topics, posts on different topics, and then filter and sift through them at your own pace. But what he put into practice every morning was over coffee. He decided that it would be over coffee because he didn't have to create a new time in the morning to do this. But over coffee, he would go to Feedly, which is the tool he uses, and look through the content, decide what content he would share that day on which platforms, and then he scheduled the content then and there over coffee. So a couple of perks. It gave him a slightly longer coffee break. It got all his social media curation set up for the day, and it almost instantly became an immediate habit because it was associated with something he was habitually doing every morning anyway. So that's a really good way to add in a new routine. Just attach it to something that's already a routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we talked a lot the other night preparing for this about processes and tools for doing the curation. Feedly is not something that I use, so I can't speak to that. Tina's got a tool she's going to talk about. But I wanted to share my process for content curation. And I think, everybody has a process. Whether it's a good process or a bad process remains to be seen, but everybody has a process that they use. And if you're very spontaneous and you go through your feed and you say, I'm going to share that, that is a process. So you can always add something new to your process. My process for content curation, and this runs the gamut of all of the accounts that I run for myself and my clients, I always include Google Alerts. So I have 6 or 8 different I have more set up, but I have 6 or 8 that come into my inbox daily for different keyword searches on topics related to my clients. I also have keyword searches set up for all of their names, but those things don't come in on a daily basis. So I have, news items coming in about all these different topics in a quick, easy to scan email from Google. And then I also am a heavy user of Twitter lists. So I've written a couple of articles about Twitter lists. I have another one that will hopefully hit the blog next week. But Twitter lists are a way to set up all of the people you're following so that you can sort them into content areas. So for example, Sherry, my sister, is listening in up there. And
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. If she was trying to sort out her Twitter feed, she could actually have a list for people and companies and tour operators as a travel agent in Turkey. She could have one list for Turkey. She could have one list that is for Portugal, where she is now. So she could have a list that is for every country that she is in or going to or planning to visit, and then sort out all of the travel information by country when she's researching it. So that's one way you can use it. Another way that I use lists, so I do that for topic areas. I have a social media list. I have a list that is, well, this one's kind of silly, but it might, I mean, somebody like Kara, who's also listening in, could make much better use of this than I could. I have a list that is all the Halifax restaurants that are on Twitter. And I don't use that list very often. Kara does a lot of, has restaurant clients, so she could maybe use a list like that more extensively than me. But what I do use it for is if I'm planning a night out on the town or a lunch out with a friend, I might look on that list to see what the daily specials are, or if there's any events coming up, or Valentine's Day, I might look through that list to see who's doing something special for Valentine's Day. So you can do things like that. My favorite list is what I call my main list, and that's what it's called on Twitter. It's private, so nobody else can see who's on it. And in that list are people like Tina and Kara and Sherry, and probably Adam is in. I'm pretty sure Adam's in that list. And like people I want to connect with on a regular basis, but also Social Media Examiner and TechCrunch and all Facebook and all of the places that I get my social media information that I want to share out on my profiles. So I look through that and I see, a blog this morning from Hootsuite that I thought was a great share. So I put that on my Facebook. So those lists really bring me the information that I want to share out with people. And the only other process that I use for my content curation, for finding content, is to sign up for certain newsletters. So I sign up for Smart Brief on social media, and I signed up for Social Media Examiner, and there are a few blogs that I sign up for and get in my email so that I don't miss them. And then all of that stuff is coming to me. I don't have to go looking for it when I need content. And then, of course, I use Hootsuite to schedule things. So Hootsuite is my tool of choice for scheduling. And I was just going to turn it over to Tina, but she disappeared. And I can't even hear her. So Tina's gone. So that's the process that I use for content curation. And one of the things that I wanted to make really clear in this discussion today was content curation and scheduling are very different from automation. So automation is kind of a dirty word in social media marketing. If you automate things, there's too many chances that things will go wrong. But scheduling is okay as long as you're careful with it. If you schedule evergreen content, then that's okay. If you're scheduling your specials of the day for a restaurant, I have no problem with that. If you're scheduling a campaign to promote a workshop, I have no problem with that. As long as you're conscious of the fact that, hey, the world is going on out there, and if suddenly there's some big scandal that happens that relates to your workshop, you probably should take down the scheduled posts before they go out. So I don't have a problem with scheduling of evergreen content as long as you're still there still engaging with people on all of the networks that you're using. So if it's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you're still going in there to respond to comments, and it's not taking you 3 weeks to respond when you're asking people to put pictures on Instagram. As long as you're still doing that kind of engagement, then scheduling is a big, big help to your process of doing content curation. So that's my process. Tina, what's your process?
Great question. And I just want to add into your process a little bit too, because I love Twitter lists, and I love them more since I'm working with clients who are not necessarily local, but this is great for any business that has clients, or you're speaking to people who are not local. It's great on Twitter if anything is going on where you can track that with a hashtag. Like this week, one of my clients was at a conference in Montreal, and the client is in New Brunswick, and I was here in Nova Scotia, but I was the one curating the content for that event. And I could do that very easily with a Twitter list. In my case, the tool that I used that time was Hootsuite, but you can curate it right on Twitter, or you can create a stream in a tool like Hootsuite where you're just watching that, the keywords that you put in, or in this case, in the case of this conference, it was 2 specific hashtags that were being used, one for the conference in general and one for a specific session they were doing on using Twitter for business in that industry. So in following those hashtags on Twitter, wow, was it ever easy to curate content on behalf of the client. And also because we were prepared in advance for this session coming up, what you can do as a curator is just have some content prepared and ready to go, because you can kind of forecast the kind of questions that business owners are going to want to know about, or in your case, if for your small business, that a client will be curious about. So you can kind of have a few things on the back burner ready to go, but only share them once it becomes, relevant in the conversation. So once I saw that open up in the conversation, I was like, great, I've got a couple of links that are relevant to that exact question, the thing that they're all talking about right now using that hashtag. So now's the time to put them in. So that's the other thing about curation and what Anita was just saying, to be there, to be present, even if you're posting and scheduling ahead of time. Just know, be there so that everything is timely. And if you're curating for an event, you definitely have to be on hand, eyes on the screen, watching what's happening and taking advantage of those moments so everything is relevant. But what a great way to collect content if you know of an event happening live. Even if you're not participating or sponsoring or directly involved, you can get involved on social media. That's the beauty of it. You can almost make yourself a virtual participant. I've done this before. I've seen a great conference going on countries away, and I've just followed it on social media, and I've engaged in the question and answer periods and things like that, and I became involved. I participated in the discussion. So there are a lot of great things you can do with content for sure. And I see we've got Adam, and we've got a question. Hi, Adam.
Hey, you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do I sound like Chewbacca?
Yeah.
Do I sound like Chewbacca? No, okay, good.
Well,
no,
okay.
do we sound like chipmunks today?
You guys sound lovely and look lovely.
Perfect.
Thank you. So we wanted to bring in a few people that we knew who did different types of content curation. And we had a couple of people in mind who weren't able to make it. Adam graciously put his children down for a nap so that he could join us.
So awesome.
So if you hear screams and stuff, literally, she's right there, kind of on the couch watching Shrek or something, and my son's downstairs. So I might have to whisper.
Okay. And Adam, you and Sherry are twinsies today, she says. She's wearing the same sweater as you.
Twinsies!
I'm sorry, I didn't do that today. I'm wearing my Frankie McDonald shirt today.
That's awesome as well. Awesome.
I just got it yesterday.
Amazing.
Okay, so Adam, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, Adam can also be found, other than Purcelli Raptor, at Caring Counts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Business of Smiles. Are they on all of them too?
Yep.
Yeah, so you've got like 3 handles on everything that you're managing. But Caring Counts is really the one that we wanted to talk to you about, because you've put in place a process for Caring Counts to find great stories, inspirational stories to share with people. So what is your process? And maybe it's as simple as mine was, but what is your process for finding all those great stories that you share with people?
Okay, so when you messaged me and said, we'd like come in and talk about your curating process. First of all, I had to go make sure I know what that means. I'm not that smart, so I'm like, what's curate mean? So I started thinking about, I'm kind of different, not just me, but what I do is a little different. So I kind of thought, like, how can I give something of value to anyone watching that? So I've kind of created a story that happened at the restaurant, this was a service campaign that created Caring Counts, is about making people smile. Basically, that's the gist. So what's happened with me is that the curation process is people will find a story and say, wow, they relate it to something that I do. And then they share it and say, isn't this cool? And I go, yes, that's cool. And I share it and I thank them, like Sherry, your sister, or Kim Henry. There's all these people that share this stuff with me, and I just share it. So I guess how I could, because it's totally different to someone that's starting a business at first and they've maybe had a traditional business for 20 years and realize now, holy crap, this social media thing's here. How do I do this? Think about what the end goal is and work backwards. So what is your story? What is your story? Create your story and then start kind of plugging in what you want to do and then work on how you're going to set up your process. So that's kind of what's happened. And if you create a compelling story or an identity, if you're genuine, you're going to find that 3 people that are caring will turn into 6, will turn into 12, or turn into 20. So find out what your story is and do all that first, and then say, okay, now that we've got something going and we know what we're going to do, then 20 minutes in the morning on Twitter, looking at what people are saying and engaging with them. And then the rest of the day, all you have to do is reply. So you spend 20 minutes, the coffee that you talked about earlier, you're sitting drinking your coffee, organo coffee. Oh, shameless plug. Shameless plug. I'm sorry. I just blab jabbed you.
Delicious.
No, but so to give a recommendation, Twitter, spend 20 minutes when you're having your cereal in the morning, not tweeting stuff, looking at what people are saying and replying to what they're talking about. Because what will happen is over the day, they'll reply. And now all you're doing is spending 10 seconds at a time replying to people all day. Twitter is now set. You've built some relationships. Facebook, you probably have to do some sort of scheduling. But make sure it's not pushing. Hey, hi, who's that? Hi.
I don't know. Did you let somebody in?
She's in the back door. Hey, how you doing?
I'm not sure who that was.
I was like,
somebody just appeared, and I don't even know who it was.
I'm sorry who that was. That was really creepy. I'm like,
you were high.
Go on.
That was a blab bomb. You know, like
a blab bomb. That's what that is.
Totally what it was.
Yeah. So
sorry. I love your strategy. I love your strategy, and what I love about it is that it's the be and do. You have so much integrity in what you're doing because you're being what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. You are actually caring enough to interact with all these people, and you do that on a regular basis. And then when you share it, you also give a shout out all the time to the person who sent this to you or who first shared it when you saw it. And every part of your strategy involves demonstrating that you care. Mm-hmm. So there's so much integrity in that. And I think that really connects with people. Mm-hmm. People who come across your content know that it's for real, that you really do care, that, you know, this is not just a marketing stunt you're pulling, that it's for real. And it's because of how you were talking about, like, to actually think about how you want to go about curating, because that's where the magic is really in how you do it.
Yeah, because you can get lost. And I think what happens as, I don't consider myself a social media manager per se, but I understand what the job is ish. It's you guys are way better than I would be. But we can get lost in all the like technical stuff. And then so you're sitting down with that person that's had a traditional business for 20 years. They're whatever, let's say 40 to 55 years old, and they're scared of this social media thing. And we can scare them off by saying, you got to get all these likes or impressions or whatever, and say, okay, let's peel it way back and say, okay, you're a real estate agent. What do? I sell houses. No, you build relationships. What you have in your hand, your computer or your phone, is a relationship building machine. Take your little networking event you go to that has 13 people, times that by 1,000 or 1,000,000. That's what you have. Now, how do we capture that? By people seeing who you are, because I know who you guys are. You guys have your certain personalities that are both fantastic. I have what I do. Sherry has what she does. And what you do is you create your compelling story, and people watch Sherry go all over the world taking pictures and doing amazing stuff that I wish I could do. But, so it's, anyways, I kind of go off. Sorry, I go off when I go on here, but I think it's,
I'm just learning blab. That's why I put the question in there. It's not that I'm not listening.
No. I didn't know. I was not saying, shut up. Hey, Don, you're messing my game up. No.
Don's on the other side of you.
Is he? No, here looks like it's here. Really?
Yeah.
I have one question before you leave us here, Adam.
Yeah.
In kind of being the driving force behind Caring Counts, the steward of that hashtag, did you decide before it was a thing that you were going to turn it into kind of a movement? Or did you see that it was something that was emerging, that was of great interest to you, and then kind of like take it by the tail and run with it? Which came first?
I will go with answer number 2, because I think what I'm most proud of it is that I've had, when the shirts were going, when in summer was just shirts like crazy. So I had people from like grade 3 or people from first year university, and they're saying, what is going on? And when I kind of explain it, and all they say to me is like, that's you. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I can tell that is, it's like I found kind of something I've taken hold of what my personality is. I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm a ridiculously insane, funny, silly, say bad jokes, all that stuff kind of guy. But I also really care. And I really think that that's what my story is. But I think I think I appreciate the love. And nothing was planned. And I think that's the best part. It's when something happens.
It's all organic.
Don't worry about, what could go wrong. Worry about what could go right. So if something happens and you happen to put a tweet out there and you didn't think of it, and you guys live this. We talked about this before. You spend 2 hours on this beautiful piece of content and you share it and no one sees it, and you want to sponsor it because you're so mad that no one's looking at it. But you'll have another one you just throw out there and it just goes. Or you say a comment and it just goes. Take that. Ride it.
Exactly. It's almost like the less you push it, the better it does sometimes, for whatever reason.
Just don't be scared. I think I have fun with it. I'll throw stuff on, and doesn't work. It doesn't work. I don't, because I know I'm not going to say anything that is highly offensive, because I understand that it's the world looks, but I don't care if someone sees me, shaking my belly around. That stuff doesn't bother me. I don't care. I know I'm not going to say anything too ridiculous. So have fun. That's the main gist. Listening to you guys, anyone listening that's getting help from these lovely ladies, have fun. It is fun. Yeah. It really is fun. Your job is hard, stressful, and you're trying to make a living. Let the social media part be your story and have fun with it. And let these ladies, show you how to do it right. That's it. See, I advertise for myself and you. This organic coffee is deep.
Your strategy is just deep. It's like layers deep, Adam. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I now look after my kids now? Because I actually do care about them too.
Yeah.
Yes, please go watch Shrek with your daughter.
All right. Love you guys. See you later.
Bye, Adam.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hang up.
Okay, so before we go any further, we've had this question hanging here. So should we answer it?
Well, I think that question should wait till the end because it's
Okay,
not
sure.
specifically about content curation. So let's
Yeah.
do the content curation stuff first, and then we can tackle
Absolutely.
his question.
Right.
So Sherry posted a question here that I cannot reach down
Okay.
here in the thing because it won't scroll for me. I don't know if you can pull Sherry's question up or not.
Okay.
But it's so if you're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, how do you find the time to create relationships on all of them? An hour a day is 3 hours each day. Yikes. So I don't know. Like, yeah, I spend 3 hours a day on social media. Of course I do. But for most people, I don't think they have to. I think, what Adam's saying, 20 minutes over coffee, you find your content that you want to share, and then it's out there. You don't have to, it's not going to take you 3 hours to respond to comments on all those networks, which is what he was talking about when the question came in. But it does take time and routines, new routines again, to go into Twitter a couple of times a day and see if there's anything to respond to or if there's any new content to share. And the sooner and the more often you do that, the better your relationships will be. So, I was just talking to somebody yesterday who's been using Twitter on and off for the last few years and not seeing any benefit. So I pointed out to her that she's really broadcasting. She's not in there having conversations with people. She's just putting stuff out there and hoping it sticks like spaghetti on the wall, just hoping it sticks. But she wasn't using it as a networking function. She wasn't having conversations with people except once in a while to say thanks for the meeting today, or here's a picture with so-and-so.
Yeah.
So it's all about building those relationships and talking to people. And once you start doing that, you say 3 hours sounds like a lot, but once you start doing that, you figure out how to do it faster. First of all, the routines become easier, and then it just takes less time. And it seems like less time because you're having more fun doing it, because you're getting to know those people and you're talking to them like they're friends, not potential customers. So there are all kinds of people on Twitter that I talk to that I've never met, that I know probably better than Tina, that I can just go on and have conversations with. And it's no different than walking into a Chamber of Commerce event and trying to find people to talk to there. You just have to find the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, Sherry, I was just going to say, and maybe I missed this because my attention was elsewhere, but I'm not sure why it's taking 3 hours. I would say that if you are using content curation to help build engagement with your audiences on those 3 platforms, it should take 30 minutes maximum a day for all 3 platforms together. So just some ideas you can use. On Instagram, what I would do is, and I think there's some, I don't create lists on Instagram, but I know there are tools where you can do that now. But what I do is when I am curating content and also at the same time wanting to build relationships, I will just look through specific accounts, and because I use Regram, or a tool that I'm later going to use to curate that content to share it out from my account or from the client account, I just go through and like the things that I might potentially share later. And I take a look at, I'm sort of looking at all the things that I think fit with my social media plan, fit with my target audience, and with my goals for who I want to connect with. And I like all the potential things. And then I go into Regram, and there's a list, and I can just choose to look at all the things I liked, and all the recent things I liked come up first. I can look through again and choose what to share. And then when I share, I do kind of what Adam does with Caring Counts. You give a shout out. You might, because you're curating it, and this is just a tip for curating in general, when you're curating it, give it your own voice, give it some relevance for your own brand or your own sort of purpose with it. So you might want to give it a different title, or you might want to not on Instagram, you won't be pulling out a quote, but you might want to just give it something different with your voice on it. Give a shout out to the person who originally posted it. In some cases, it's appropriate to include what they said about it. Quite often, you'll include most or all of that. And then, you can share and build, you can curate content, share and build relationships all at the same time. And then if you're using other tactics where you're putting some relevant hashtags in your comment section, you'll get lots of other eyes on that content too. And you can kind of be passive after that. Like Adam said, sit back, let the comments and likes and interactions and engagements roll in, and go back at the end of the day. And if anyone commented, comment back to them and all of that sort of thing. And I would really do much the same thing on Twitter and Facebook. So as you're choosing what to share, always turn it into a shout out. Always think about, well, how can I also build a relationship as I'm sharing this? I'm not sharing it in a vacuum. We're all connected, right? We're part of a community. So how can I don't like this expression, but kill two birds with one stone? How can I do both? And it's not only an efficient way to do it, it's very smart. It helps you build community with sort of.
Uh-oh, Tina froze. Let's see if she comes back there. Okay, so send her a message in case she doesn't know she froze. So Sherry, you were clarifying the question, which was not just about content curation, but Tina was, saying if you're doing your content curation properly and giving credit and shout outs and thanking people for providing their good content, then that's part of building relationships. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time every day to do that initial sharing out and shouting out of content. And by doing the shout outs and the things that Tina was just talking about, you are building those relationships. So you don't have to be spending every day, all day on any network. But just a few minutes here and there to thank people and interact with people, that's how you build relationships. By being present on whichever network you are actively using. So there's nothing worse than having people post things on Twitter, for example, and you try to interact with them and they never respond because they're not really there. They've auto-linked it with their Facebook and it posts on Twitter, but they never actually check into Twitter to talk to their followers over there. Everybody knows I hate that. I absolutely hate that. So as long as you're actually present and engaged and talking to people on all of the networks, then it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be 3 hours. It can, for one business, you can do it in, I'll give you an hour. I'll give you an hour a day. Just because.
At first. Yeah. So the only other thing I was going to say before I froze there was so on Twitter, I love the quote tweet, and it's not easy to use in a tool like Tweet, but if you're on native Twitter, quote tweet is amazing. So first of all, it shows us, everybody reading your tweet, that you actually clicked through and read this thing that you're now sharing with us, which is super important. Don't just auto share things without knowing what you're sharing, because sometimes you'll get a little surprise if you later click through and discover something you don't want to discover. And sometimes what you'll discover is the link's been broken the entire time. But anyway,
or it just goes to a photo and not the actual article.
Or it goes to the world's worst website full of pop-ups and really inappropriate ad photos and like everything you don't want to look at, especially if you're sending this out to your followers who are sitting at work at their desk. You don't want them clicking that open, even on their lunch break. So when you quote tweet, you can pull out a quote right from it. You can relate it to something you've already been talking about. If you've got a topic of the week that you're kind of focused on, you can say, okay, yesterday I was talking about this. Now this is exactly what I meant. Read this. Or you can be really specific. And I'm going to pop in actually an article here about writing great headlines, because the other tactic you can use for a quote tweet is to create your own really clickable, enticing headline. to go with that tweet, because sometimes you'll find great content with not a great headline, and you can improve on its shareability by giving it a really great headline. So I am gonna put in an article here from CoSchedule that's really good for anyone who wants to know, get some ideas for how to create great headlines. So that's for resharing. Tweets.
Yeah, I try to do that. I don't always. Sometimes I let it go just however it comes up native, depending on my time. But I do try to relate why I'm sharing this particular article, especially on Facebook and LinkedIn, where I have a little bit more room to describe why I'm sharing it. So sometimes on Twitter, all you can do is a headline, because sometimes they're just really long. But I do like pulling out the quote that grabs me the most from the article and using that as my sort of reason for sharing. So yeah. I like that tactic too, definitely. And it does sort of prove to people that you actually read it. And it's a way of checking to make sure the link works and it's not a pornographic photo and all of those kinds of things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to get to the other questions, I promise. But we did have a couple of other things we wanted to discuss. So we've talked about our strategies. We've talked about best practices. We got a little bit out of order from our agenda here, but we talked about best practices. Tina, you wanted to talk about a local curation software called Crate that's built by Russ Simmons, who is on Twitter, The Coolest Cool, if you want to check him out on Twitter. So he has founded Crate. Tell us about Crate.
So Crate is another curation tool, and I'm just going to put the link there, and then I'm going to check it afterwards, because I don't know. Well, can someone else check that for me? Because
yeah, I'm checking.
It might have went to my Crate, and it might come up invalid.
No, it went to, yep, no, it works.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so first a word about Ross. His other company is Hustle and Grind. He is just a man on the move, and he is someone who, as a digital strategist, has done a ton of curation himself over the years. So he's created this tool to help people, like many other tools, build a kind of customized crate to filter in all of the content that you might want to share. So you can use different sort of filters to build your crate. You can put in any new content from particular websites that you like, any content from particular Twitter handles that you like to follow the most. You can put in keywords, like hashtag keywords. And what happens is Crate will populate that. It'll fill your Crate up with all of the newest content, the most recent content that is filtered through whatever you've defined for that crate. And you can build as many crates as you want, focusing on as many different topics as you like. After you create your crate, say that 10 times fast. After you create it, you might not be in love with it. It might not be working exactly as you'd like, so you can go back in and edit it at any time. Because it's a new tool and it's still more or less in beta form, they're still developing and improving it all the time. So they're also adding in some new functionality over the next little while. And I believe they're adding in the ability to blacklist certain things. So for example, if you're getting a lot of posts that are just out of context, right? They're pulling in the word you want, but it's totally in the wrong context, and it's always pulling it in from this website. So you can kind of blacklist that website, not because you don't like them, but because the content's not relevant to your crate. So it's getting more and more sophisticated in terms of how you can filter the information into your crate. And from there, you can share it directly or using Buffer if you're on Buffer. So anything you find in that crate, again, in the morning while you're having your coffee, if you want to build it into your routine, you can just go through your crates and you can schedule them through Buffer, which you have set up to post at whatever times during the day you prefer for your different accounts. And you know, it's such an efficient tool. And what I found with Crate is that the quality of the content that comes through is reliably worth checking out. Whether or not it's totally irrelevant, a relevant post, you'll decide once you get there. But the quality of the content is always good. You're never going to come across just a terrible hacker site that nobody should be visiting. So there's reliability there too. And he's a great local entrepreneur. And I say, go check it out. If you're not using any other tools right now to help you curate your content, this one is super easy to get started, very intuitive to use, very easy to edit, and easy to build your crates. And you can change them at any time. So yeah, check it out. That's Ross Simmons.
And that's what I was going to say as well. If you don't already have a process in place, go check out Crate and start with that, because what I found, I did do a trial on Crate and it's great. I have no issues with it whatsoever, but I already had my process that was working for me. And at the time I wasn't willing to change my routine. That's all I'm going to say. I wasn't willing to change the routine to move to a different way of doing it. So maybe at some point in the future I might, and I would certainly look at a program like Crate to do that. So some of the other tools that will help with your content curation, we talked about Crate. There's a program called Triberr, Triberr, and that's a place where people who blog can log in, and you join tribes. And you join tribes, they could be about your specific topic, or they could be very general tribes. There could be a tribe there for Halifax bloggers, for example. And basically, you have two options. You can set it to share everything that comes across from all of the blog members in your tribe automatically. And we already know I'm not a fan of automation. So I would never suggest that you set it to share everything automatically, especially if you get into a tribe that's got 100 members from all kinds of different focus areas. It would be sharing every 5 minutes all day.
Yeah.
So, but you can also go into your tribes and look at the content and then share from there to your social networks. So it's just another way of finding content.
Yeah.
That was another one that I have used on occasion. We thought about Pocket. So Pocket is an app that you can be reading articles on your phone or on the computer, and you haven't got time to read everything right now. So you throw them in your Pocket and pull that up later. And I think Pocket integrates with things like Buffer and If This Then That and all kinds of other programs to help get those articles scheduled once you've had a chance to look at them and see that it's something you do want to share. And then, of course, everybody's favorite is Evernote, which I'm still trying to get a handle on. I'm still trying to figure out how to use it all, but I'm getting there slowly. But you can throw things into Evernote. You can have Pocket automatically go to Evernote, automatically go to Buffer, all kinds of different things you can set up to make that process easier. And then your Evernote is with you on your phone and your tablet and your laptop, and you've always got all of those articles right there with you if you need them or if you want to share something again. So there's lots of tools out there that can make the process of curating your content a whole lot easier and more efficient and take less time, which then opens you up to spend more time on the building relationships part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of, I'm going to pop in a couple of links here for things that you may want to pull up about the value of using content curation processes for your business. These were the articles that I was reading, and they have good descriptions of good best practices.
Yep.
And ways to do it and things you can do. So you can read these at your leisure. And they will also be available on the replay at twerp.ca. You can see the replay, and if you want to go through it again, and you'll be able to get all the links to all the articles and the programs we've talked about there as well. And I think I had one more.
Okay. And then the other, the only other thing I was going to share, and I did share a blog post earlier about writing headlines for the content that you're curating. If you do want to add your own headline to it, I wrote a blog post about writing clickable headlines. And it's really just about some of the psychology behind what makes people click. So that may help as well when you're sharing content and you want to figure out how to make it as engaging as possible. And we still have this final question.
Well, we've got a couple of questions there. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So I'm going to...
Just before we get started, I have to dash off about a minute and a half to go pick my boys up from school. So I'm going to say goodbye now, and but leave it in your very capable hands. But when I go, it's not because I don't love you all. I'll see you next Friday, hopefully. But take it away.
So I'm going to turn off the recording, and then we can do this because we're trying to keep the show part down to 1 hour. So I'll just say thank you to everybody who's tuning in on the replay at this point. And we're going to take some questions now. We'll see you next Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Atlantic.